Owen caught us with our breeches down. King Henry had decided to push on with our own vanguard to try and outflank the Welsh prince's own spear tip and drive a sword into the heart of their army. Unfortunately, Owen wasn't stupid. He'd sent his sons forward. The youngest, the little bastard, Sinan, began to harass our flanks, causing us to stray into the woodland, and there it became a bitter fight. I remember the sound of my heartbeat, coming on like thunder, louder than a war drum. I knew Tom was beside me, and Spider was somewhere to my back. I was reminded in that moment of fighting the Scots, and how they'd come howling down the hillside and onto our swords. I prayed the Welsh would be as foolish. God wasn't listening. The fighting became savage, close. I could smell the breath of the man in front of me, and his face was a wash of blood as a blade clove it in two. The next man, bearded and missing an eye, screamed as my sword point took him in the groin from beneath my shield. Tom put his axe into a Welshman, his face as blank as if he were cutting wood for the fire. And then I was next to the king. He was fighting with us, which was more than anything Rothbury or King Stephen did. Maybe this half-breed wasn't such a turd. I lost the king in the rush of war, but I felt the rage that swept through our ranks. The men charged. Owen arrived, reinforcing his son's beleaguered men, and in the late afternoon our forces clashed, Henry's cavalry returning from a raid and crashing into the enemy line. Henry took an arrow. It didn't pierce him, just twisted in his thick silk surcoat, but it showed the men he was one of them, one of us. We rushed the Welsh as they tried to reform, screaming murder and curses. I caught the glint of his eyes beneath his visor, those eyes bloodshot and keen for slaughter. I'd had them before. I watched as he clove into the enemy, his sword raised high. In that moment, we were winning. God was with us, and we, the English, were winning. But we were wrong. So wrong. Our spear tip had engaged Prince Owen, but his eldest son, Dafydd, had struck us from behind. He split our tightly packed men with a wedge of heavy horse, and what had begun as a victory ended in a devastating rout. And so we came to Colehill, battered and running. Henry formed us up, tired and ragged we were, soaked through from the rain and facing a horde of howling Welshmen. Gwynedd had repelled us, and in that evening England had been stopped dead. But England was not yet finished. Baron Roger of Hertford came like lightning, striking into the Welsh line as the sun fell behind us. Our battered army, who had been pushed through the streets of Colehill town and into the moor beyond. We cheered. God save Baron Roger. God save him. What was left of our army headed east, back through the mountains and the valleys, guarded by Baron Roger and his shining knights. The king was quiet in those long, arduous days, his mind all twisted over Owen's repulsion of our God-blessed forces. My thoughts strayed to home. Had life been simpler there, living in that shack with 5 brothers, 2 sisters, my ma and my grandfather? Simple, yes. But I wouldn't trade trudging through the Welsh mud for that life. Never again. And in that moment, I knew how my father had felt before he walked out, and why he had left me his notched and rusted blade. Prince Owen's victory had been short-lived. The Welsh forces had celebrated, but their dawn came with 30,000 more English troops. Oh so noble Owen made the ride through the hills to Beeston, outside Chester, to meet in treaty with King Henry. King Henry agreed not to move his army forward, and Owen, unprepared for an invasion of that magnitude, relented, and gave up his rebellion and gave back the land he had taken. England was whole once again, and I was a soldier without any soldiering. I was given 2 days' respite. We all were. We were stationed in Chester, and it felt good to be back in that town after traipsing through Normandy and Wales. The sounds were familiar, and I felt my feet take me onto a familiar place. A horse and tack. The fire brought relief to my face. The stink of the stables, outback wafting through the thatch. The horse looked like angels, and I needed a drink. One man spat at my feet, and in a slur of words pulled his blade. Drunken fool. He paused a moment, hazy on his feet, and then gave me enough time to pull my father's blade. Then he came, grunting and sweaty. I checked his blows. 1, 2, 3. And with a riposte, I lunged and cut him down. I was no longer a huntsman. I was a soldier. I was a king's killer. 2 men? 3? Maybe 4? No. Killing them didn't make me a man. Returning here and walking up these stairs, clutching my blade, dripping fool's blood, makes me a man. Why? Because I have pride, I have honour, and now I have reputation. And reputation is everything. This blade, it has a story now, just like mine. It's more than just a sword. It's part of me. I know now who my father was. He's me and I am him. Our lives were never meant to stay dull. They were meant to be lived by the sword and to die fast and bloody. For now, though, I've earned my keep and the straw pillow is cooling. But first...